Is there such a thing as an absolute or universal truth? This truth that would be, no matter what the evidence is, always determining that what was said is correct. I'm arguing there is. Hey, this is Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. Now, I'm arguing that it's better to do the job right the first time than it is to do it again later. Because if you don't have the time to do it right the first time, then you obviously don't have the time to do it later. And that every mistake, every lie, every form of deception causes additional overhead and additional cognitive activity that over time will wear you down. This is my argument. And this leads to that there is a truth. Now, when you have observed phenomena, there is the thing that actually happened, and then there's the perception of each observer. So I'm not saying that people are wrong if they believe a certain truth that can be proven incorrect. However, once it is proven incorrect, if you don't adjust your behavior, you're actually adding on extra activity, extra thought. You may be building a foundation that is insecure for new truths that you may discover. It's like basic math. If you think 2 + 2 is 8, and you aren't absolutely sure that your answer is correct, so you're like, oh, well, maybe it's 8, maybe it's something else, that will discourage you in learning higher mathematics. If you don't understand the Pythagorean theorem, it'll make geometry difficult. There are foundational truths and understandings that if they are objectively observed, objectively measured, it's universal. So it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter anything. These truths are evident. Now, here's the problem. There are people today that believe the earth is flat. There are people today that believe if they stepped off a building that they could levitate. Now, have they tested that theory? Well, testing that theory would cause personal harm to them. And something in the back of their brain is saying, we can believe it, but we don't have to try it. And I know I'm giving you exaggerated examples, but my point being is that there is a universal truth. A lot of people believe they know this universal truth, but not until you test it with measures will you know for sure. And even though you know for sure, you still have to be open to the understanding. Now, what I'm not talking about is a sliding scale truth that is a truth based on the justification. I'm saying truth based on measurement. But here's an example. If you have poor monetary policy in a country, it may work out in the beginning, but over time it may have unintended consequences, such as the welfare system, for example. The welfare system today provides people a means without requiring any effort. Now, that's perfect if you're disabled or you're elderly or you have no capacity to work. But the unintended consequences is individuals who are borrowing from a system. They're free riding in a system that has abundance. When that system doesn't have abundance, that system will cause additional hardship to them. So it's the self-determination versus the being taken care of by somebody else. Now, listen carefully. In the sense of a welfare system, there are many rules and qualifications and earning limits and guidelines that actually frame a person into a persona rather than seeing the welfare as a temporary situation. There are many individuals who find it a lifestyle. Now, here's the bigger challenge in this. If you have the skill set to follow all the rules and file the right paperwork and do all these things, then you could work and you could contribute in an environment. Now, again, I know this is a sensitive topic, but this is just one example. A government that has poor monetary policy, that's over generous in welfare and safety net systems, always tends to have to do austerity measures, and then the austerity measures pull back those benefits, but have not left the individual with the skill set in order to survive on their own. So if the original mentality was, and in North Carolina's example, when they stopped their unemployment insurance, people got jobs faster. The solution is to build more capable and skilled individuals. Now, how do we do this? Well, we understand that truth should be challenged. So if someone says X is true, we need to be able to challenge that, but have the skill set to challenge it briefly and understand the truth to make a decision. In the case of helping someone, are you really helping someone by taking away their individual rights, limiting their opportunities? For example, the welfare system, and believe me, I've known people on welfare. I'm familiar with how the system works. You can read the documents online. But if you're on a disability program and you make X number of dollars from disability, that amount that you're making is far below the poverty line. Now, individuals who are trying to improve themselves may find that despite having a disability, or what the world calls a disability, they may have different abilities and actually be able to do work in art or to do light office work at a remote schedule or a flexible schedule. They may not have a perceived normal ability to contribute, but when they find their niche, when they do what works well for their condition, they actually have something that far exceeds what other people can contribute. So there are plenty of historical examples of individuals with mental illness who have been incredible artists. They're celebrated today. Maybe they had a physical disability and they ended up still accomplishing feats that many so-called able-bodied people are not able to do. But when you coddle somebody and you put them in a system with a large number of restrictions, so back to the disability, if you're on disability, you have earning restrictions. Well, what if you find an opportunity to earn enough money that you don't qualify for disability, but it's not enough money to live day to day? You lose the bridge that is the intention of a social safety net, and you lose it to the harsh reality of the real world that costs continue to go up. Same thing with elderly individuals who are on Social Security. The Social Security benefits are not enough for an individual to live. Now, does that mean we should increase the benefits? No, not necessarily. It means we need to build the individual so that they are over time producing an environment where they can remain independent and they can remain viable in an economy that may have changed around them. Now, this is a complex topic. I'm going to try to give you some more simple examples. And of course, I am open to discussion on this. So in the comments below, just simply, put your comments. But my argument here is that there are simple truths. And the simple truth is the stronger the individual is, the more resilient they can be for the changes that are going to happen anyway. These changes are often influenced by unintended consequences of policy. And if you have a strong individual who's resilient, who can determine between truth and falsehood, who can make decisions about their individual life, then you are going to have them helping themselves rather than having to take care of them. Unfortunately, if you have a welfare system that rewards states by the number of people on welfare, if you have a disability payment program that doesn't allow for the individual's abilities, and both of these systems are burdened down with paperwork, so the individual is spending so much time doing the paperwork that we are actually having the unintended consequence of making weak individuals, making individuals who maybe they're doing things under the table or all cash. You're producing someone that by the law is a criminal. Now, as an individual, they're surviving. They're doing what's necessary. They're trying to work within the rules or around the rules. But the underlying concept here is that if you remove the program entirely, so I'm not saying reform the program or make the program bigger or put more money into it, because that has problems. I'm saying if you remove the programs altogether and allow local services to work with the individual, to look at the education system to find out what the inputs are. Why is this individual in retirement without a retirement account? And sometimes that happens no fault of their own, but in other cases it happens because maybe they didn't understand their budgeting and their earning capacity was higher, but they weren't gaining the additional earning because they didn't go out and work a certain job, or they weren't qualified. They didn't have access to the education. Now that's a different story, but education is readily available. People don't avail themselves of it. But let's continue. The important thing of what I'm saying here is whether you believe what I'm saying or not, your ability to determine the truth of a topic or the truth of a conversation is extremely powerful. Now, when you apply that truth in your own life, you'll often find, because it is true, because it's provable, because it's measurable, that you're going to have more favorable results than if you just haphazardly go through life. And even if you have just a few tenets that you follow, and those few tenets work with universal truth, like natural laws, if you believe that you step off a building, you will float, if you test that stepping off a curb, you can correct your thinking, and then you won't have as many unintended consequences down the line. Now, you're not going to completely transform the world around you so that everything works out in your favor, but my argument is, if you have the ability to discern what is true and what is verifiable for the situation you're in today, then you're able to make better decisions so that you can move towards the situation you want for tomorrow. And that if you allow an outside person to tell you exactly what you should do and then put all these little rules around it, they're in effect saying that you're weak and unable to do it yourself. I want you to maintain personal strength, family resilience, within your networks to be an influencer, a producer. That is the only way that you can maintain independence. Now, it is the nature of government to make its citizens subservient. It is the nature of some individuals to maintain independence and want to make sure the government is in their service. But the majority will go along with whatever the rest of the people are doing. They essentially will mimic and copy others because they don't yet have the skill set to determine the truth from falsehood, or to determine what is best for their family and their outcomes. And often this is more detrimental than any program that's out there. So this is the takeaway. First off, your individual relationships are valuable, extremely valuable. They're a value for education, for example, for the access to resources. Your tribe, your small group, your community is worth the investment. Number two, your education is powerful. You must be able to determine and think and write and communicate so that you can be a leader even in your own household. And finally, the critical thinking skills to test assumptions. The old scientific method is going to serve you better than just doing what you're told or doing what someone else says you must do. Because ultimately, these things together give you personal independence. They give you influence over the outcomes that you desire, and ultimately drive you towards a level that others will see as successful and that will have the means and resources to sustain. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. If you have questions about what I've covered today or anything we cover in these podcast series, there's hundreds of episodes, hundreds of editions of the newsletter. Visit www.insidestrategicrelations.com. Go to the contact page and simply ask your questions. I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm Justin Hitt, here to help you transform business relationships into profits. And this includes your outcomes in life, your ability to convert resources into value, your ability to serve your community and your customer. Thanks for listening.